Welcome to the Tangent Gentlemen, where each week Scott and I start with a topic from the previous episode, and then we see where that conversation takes us. Along the way, a question, idea, or disagreements sparks tangents, and our buddy Chris keeps track of those tangents. At the end of the podcast, we'll decide on one of those topics for next week's discussion. And we got some interesting things going on tonight. Chris is on the road in the car listening to us. And he will join us when he gets home. So a little different.
Insight, yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing, Brad?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Can't complain.
I'm glad to be back, man. Had a couple weeks off. Missed our conversations, but tonight we are talking about making decisions.
Yes. It's going to be we'll be curious to see where this goes and how I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see, right?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, I'll kick off because this is sort of where I started.
Okay.
When you go into making a decision, which of these do you think directs you more? Trying to avoid negative outcomes or negative consequences, or maximizing possible benefits? Which of those do you think directs you more?
Well, of course, I think we all consider both, but I think I would go with maximizing positive benefits or outcomes.
Interesting. I mean, having known you and worked with you, that doesn't surprise me, but I definitely think I am the other. I tend to try to avoid negative consequences, and that weighs more heavily into my decision making. How do I not make mistakes? How do I not?
Okay, so starting there, how would that change one's approach to the process?
I think one thing it does is it makes it much longer for me. I think I do. I mean, I've heard it from coworkers. I've heard it from my wife for 30 years. I take forever to make decisions because I want to be prepared for all. I want to be prepared for the possible negatives, and then what am I going to do if that happens? You know, I mean, case in point, we just moved. Our youngest son moved to Chicago, and he was going to school in Lexington, graduated, going to graduate school in Chicago. So it was a whole process of, how do we get his stuff out of Lexington? How do we get it here? What do we do with it? How much of it goes to Chicago? Where's he going to live in Chicago? There's all these pieces of the decisions that had to be made. Do we rent a U-Haul? Do we make 4 trips to Lexington and just bring it back in pieces? Do we go Lexington out straight to Chicago? All these pieces, and I was just forever like, okay, I'm going to do this first one, and it's going to work out one of 3 ways. Way 1, I don't like because X could happen, and I don't want that to happen. Way 2, I'm okay with because even if Y happens, that's not that bad. And then each little piece was like that. Like I felt like I had to, and as is the case, some things happened that I never anticipated. And then some of the things, like I had never driven a trailer. We ended up renting a call behind trailer.
Yeah.
Never rented a trailer. I don't know how to drive a vehicle pulling a trailer, this thing by myself to Chicago. And
so when you went through all those, when you get your Illinois towaway things, you're going to be paying for like 3 axles instead of 2.
Oh man, see, I didn't even think of that.
Oh man, you made a bad decision.
Great. See, I should have thought about it more. I should have spent more time on it. I didn't even think of that. You're absolutely right. Wow. Okay.
I don't know how much more to be, but they charge you by the axle.
Okay. Well, there you go. What a dumb decision I made.
So are you?
That was just a case. Yeah.
Are you considering then, if you're thinking about negative consequences, right? Are you trying to minimize the worst possible outcome? Is that what?
Yeah, or how to be prepared for a quote unquote bad outcome. And I mean, if I want to get all like analytical about it, I think it's because growing up, I was around a lot of people who didn't have much of a safety net. And if they made a bad decision, there were it was tough. It was tough for them to get around that. The thing is, as I've been reminded by people who care about me a lot, you're not in that position. You're not you're not in that position. You can take a few hits and you'll be fine. Whatever these hits are, I mean, obviously I couldn't lose my house and all that, but I mean, I'm in a much better, whatever parameter you want to put on financial, legal. I'm in a much better position than a lot of people I knew growing up. And so that shaped, I think, my decision making,
Yeah.
So.
Well, I kind of switched up my approach on this topic. I started out with thinking about how do I go about making decisions? What do we do as humans to try to make the best decisions? And then I kind of veered toward levels of decisions. Like there's some things that are no big deal. Like, where are we going to go eat tonight? Who cares? So when you have those no big deal decisions like that, do you tend to be the decision maker or do you just let them go?
No. I say I just hope to have really, in that case, I'll say something like, I don't know, I just hope to have really good tea. Or as long as it's a place with good beer selection, I don't really care.
Yeah.
If I feel like having a beer or something to that effect, Yeah. I don't want to, my wife, she loves to go places and sit outside. And I'm like, all right, as long as we can sit outside and they've got a shady part, I don't care.
Yeah.
So that I tend to let that go. But that's something I've come to of late because there's a thing in our folklore with my wife and I, when we were dating and early married, one of her best friends lives in Atlanta and we were visiting them. And she said to me this friend said to me one time, I've come to realize if you're not happy, nobody's going to be happy. And I was like, oh, am I that much of a jerk? I don't mean a jerk. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that person was a jerk.
So I was kind of like, am I really that bad? And then I think part of it is, I mean, I like what I like and I want to celebrate that and I want to share that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's really, I want to be happy. It's just that I want us all to have a good experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I have to recognize that your definition of a good experience or your parameters of a good experience are not the same as mine.
Yeah. So anyway,
I tend to let that, I've gotten a lot, I think, we'll find out from the people that listen to this who know me. I think I've gotten a lot better about letting that, just saying, yeah, whatever, I don't care. Let's do whatever.
Yeah.
So
that kind of got me thinking about, this spectrum of decision making from those type of decisions that are no big deal all the way to, is it time for us to have a kid? That type of type of decision and everything between.
Should we move to North Dakota?
Yeah. Those things so it started. Then I started thinking, okay, so is it better to be? What makes a good decision maker? Is it more about being able to classify those types of decisions and being able to know which ones deserve really careful consideration over which don't?
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny so much because I think some of the best decisions, when I look back on some of the best decisions, the things that have proved to be the best decisions I've made, like the decisions that wow, that worked out really well. I'm so fortunate that happened that way. I don't remember having this deep analysis about it, like I do about silly things like, oh, should we buy a new car? When I go to buy a new car, it's like an 8-month process for me.
Yeah.
I start to research, what do I want? What kind of car do we like? What all these things. It just takes forever. And I don't mind it because it's analytical and I like to do that. But it is, whereas some of the other things I've done that have proved to work out well for me, I don't remember. They probably were at the time big decisions and I probably fretted over them, but I don't remember, milling over all like buying houses. You know, we've bought 2 houses in our life. And our first house, we kind of happened upon somebody my sister-in-law knew had this. It was their parents' house, and it needed a lot of work. And I was like, yeah, that's the kind of house I want to move into. That's in the neighborhood I want to live in. Yeah, we'll just buy that house. You know, and then this house we currently live in was a similar thing. It was in the neighborhood. We liked certain features of it. It was bigger. Okay, we'll do that. You know.
Yeah.
So those were big decisions, but I don't know if I just knew enough to say, okay, I'm not worried about the negatives associated with these decisions. So I kind of look past my usual negative focus. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I do like your idea. I really do like that idea of sort of priority, or I don't know, priority is the right word, but sort of tiering your decisions. Like, you know, where we go to dinner is not the same decision of if we should have a kid.
Right.
You know, I like that categorization. And how do you invest the time in thinking about those things?
So let me go a little further with that then. So as I started digging in, I was trying to really make myself think, you know, how can you clearly decide whether something needs careful consideration or whether, you know, the level of consideration we're talking about? How careful do we need to be in making this decision? And I kind of think it comes to, so I want to see what you think about this, how easily something can be undone or how easily you can make adjustments in this decision, or if it's totally non-reversible.
See, I like that because to me, that is somewhat in line with my negative consequence focus.
Yeah.
Because it's not a terribly negative consequence if I can fairly easily undo it. Right. You know, to me, negative consequences is, oh my gosh, I'm going to need a lot more money to figure this out or to fix this, or I'm going to need an attorney. You know? Or I'm seriously going to have to go to the doctor. You know? I mean, there's going to be some expensive professional help. Whereas to me, I guess maybe that's where the ones that, like I say, have sort of come easier. I didn't feel like I was going to I'm a pretty handy person. My dad was still alive when we bought our first house. He was an amazing handyman. And so I felt very confident that buying an old house that needed some fixing up, I had a guy, you know, and I mean, he wouldn't do the work, but he would tell me how to do it or help me do it, you know, direct me how to do it. So I didn't feel like those were
that's even better
dire consequences, you know?
Yeah.
So, but if I had said, hey, Dad, I need $15,000 for a new roof, he's like, well, I hear they're hiring at Walmart. That would have been his answer.
Yeah. So if you can decide, is this something that can be undone or reversed or adjusted? I think that's something I tend to jump right into, where you still might try to get as much information as you can.
Yeah, I do.
Because like if it's something that can be undone, to me, I always felt like, and I still feel like this, most of the learning comes from taking action. You know, prepare adequately, as adequately as you can for whatever outcome you're looking for, and then jump into it. And then, then evaluate and adjust and keep doing that, on those type of decisions. You know, I think I've said it on this podcast before, but I don't know where I heard it, and I didn't make it up. I stole it from somewhere, but I have no idea from who. But it's the ready, fire, aim. Instead of ready, aim, fire, it's ready, fire, aim. Get ready, act, then evaluate and adjust. Yeah. And I think that can fit on most decisions you make because, there's going to be some cost and there's going to be some consequences, but nearly everything's reversible. Do you agree with that?
I don't know if I totally agree with that.
Reversible
I mean, in a big existential way, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
I
know what you're saying. I probably didn't phrase that well. I mean, if I go to Las Vegas and in my 20s and I meet a beautiful lady in a casino and we go get married, we can get divorced, but there's still going to be some consequences that come out of that.
Well, if you decide, you know what, things are going really well, I'm going to go to, say, casino. I'm going to go to casino. I'm just really feeling it. It's going to be whatever. I'm
going to put my paycheck in the slot machine.
Well, more than that.
I'm black.
Like, more than that. I'm going to liquidate my 403B and I feel good. I feel really good. Or me in my sports betting. The Reds are on a streak, or the so-and-so's on a streak. I'm going to start putting, whatever, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on gambling wages. I mean, it's easy to do when you establish this is your sort of play window. And I mean, I play in the sense of money, but similar to ideas. I mean, like when I think about the work that we did, I mean, we made substantial changes in school structure and school day and kids' lives in school, but we didn't radically change anything at once.
No.
There may have been some radical changes over 3 years, but we didn't radically change anything immediately. I mean, we definitely said we're going to try to do this, and you were rightfully so, and I was very critical of it at the time, but we're going to do this on a 3-month time scale because we can talk about it for 3 months, but we won't know we don't even know what the bumps are going to be.
Yeah.
But if we do it for 3 months, we'll know.
Yeah.
And some of the things we were worried about never happened, and some of the things we were worried about happened, and there were 10 other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And in the end, we got a much better product. But see, I think that I'm of the opinion that strategy only works if you have a team of people who are attentive to a lot of different variables. And I don't know
and
if
have
for
the same goals.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if for me personally, if it's for my wife and I making it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're talking about, we're thinking about buying another car, and we were talking about how, what we're going to do, how do we want to do, what we want to get. And it was just nice to be able to have this exactly this kind of conversation. Like, well, what's important to you about this? What's important to me about this? What would you like it to have? What would you like it? How are we going to, and it was really much just like, we have this shared decision-making strategy.
Yeah.
So,
let me ask you this. All right. So let's say we're going to start a podcast, you and I.
Okay. What a terrible idea. Why would we do that?
We're going to do 2 different podcasts. All right.
Okay.
You spend 2 months researching the best setup for a podcast studio, the best equipment, best microphones. You get everything set up for 2 months doing that. You spend month 3 and 4, 2 more months, studying data, studying topics that do well and people want to hear about, looking at how to hit the algorithms on the platforms and everything. And then you spend months 5 and 6 writing your theme music, getting your theme music together and your logo and all your stuff together. And then for my podcast, tonight I put out a horrible podcast episode, and I do it every week for 6 months. So at the end of 6 months, you got a great plan to start your podcast. And I have 24 podcasts in the bank that I've learned from every one of those podcasts, how to do it a little differently and a little better. What would you, in your mind, say was who made the better decision there?
I would say you did.
But it's not, isn't it against what you say you do to make decisions? Or are you somewhere in the middle of those two?
I'm somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
I don't even think middle is the right I'm not, if middle is 50%, I'm not even, in that case, I'm not even at 50%.
Okay.
I mean, we are not, I mean, I'm not, you're more knowledgeable about this than I am.
Well, I've heard you describe yourself as, or somebody describing you as analysis paralysis. Yeah, so
yeah. No, that's fair. That's a fair criticism or commentary. I mean, it's criticism. It's fine. It's an effective I mean, it's correct. I think that for this type of a thing, you have to be doing it to get better at it. I mean, it's not because there is no, I mean, I don't know. I suspect there are people that know these are the formulas, these are the components of the formula that you need to have a successful podcast, or to increase your likelihood of having a successful podcast. I don't know what those things are. I don't even begin to know what those things are.
Obviously, we still have, 40 people listening to our podcast.
But I also think that was, I don't know, I'm pretty sure in our initial conversation, that was never our goal.
No, it wasn't.
So then I would argue we have a very successful podcast.
Oh, I do too. Yeah.
So
we enjoy our time together, and we've got a product that's coming out of it.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny. I've talked to different people that said, man, I listened to what y'all said, and it was really interesting. I never thought about it that way. Yeah. Like, I mean, as a teacher, is that not one of the best compliments you could ever get?
Oh,
wow, you made me think about something. Yeah, that's great.
I wonder then. Go ahead.
So I just think that there is something to the doing instead of the thinking. At some point, you got to say, okay, we're going to do this now, and we're going to learn from doing it, and we're going to make mistakes, and it's not going to be good. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Have we learned a lot? Have we gotten better, would you say, in this, whatever that means?
As far as this podcast goes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we've made little changes, and, we brought Chris in and quit trying to keep track of the tangents ourselves. We moved our theme music to the end of the podcast, so it would get right into it, for people that might not, might be their first listen, and I think, we're just making little changes, but I definitely do believe, if you think about what you said, you learn from your actions. If there's none of that action piece, you're just guessing and trying to foresee the future, aren't you?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And see, I think one of the things, I mean, I'm not just trying to be, meta and thematic through our podcast, but I do think one of the thoughts I had when you were describing what you would do, the two scenarios. When we talked about morality, you made a really strong, and I thought very very appropriate and very effectively made the point that morality has to have a continual analysis of why you're doing and a sense of humility of learning from others and why they are doing what they do. And I think your 6-month arc that you just described has a similar component of that. If you just kept doing what you're doing with no analysis, then I would say 6 months in, you're no better off than I would be. Because in essence, you didn't learn anything.
Oh, yeah.
You just kept doing. And we know, I mean, there are situations where people keep doing and they never get better. I mean, one of the things that I think personally feel that was one of the best things we did as teaching, or in our teaching coaching model, was this idea of observing teachers and giving them feedback and coaching them to focus on specific aspects of their classroom and their teaching. And that, if they were willing to do that, they got better. You get better at your craft.
Yeah.
Because you're willing to do and to analyze and learn from.
Yeah.
And that's, I think all components are required.
That just made me think of a little different thought, because we never perfected that. we never perfected this coaching model. I don't know if we ever would. But like you said, if people, if teachers wanted to improve their practice, there was a vehicle in place that they could do that.
Yeah.
But it made me think. So I wonder to use we'll call it the ready, fire, aim strategy. You've got to be willing to live with. I'm trying not to say bad decisions, because not bad decisions, but imperfect decisions. You got to live. You got to be able to live with imperfect decisions.
Yeah,
and realize that you're kind of in this perpetual state of evaluating and adjusting.
Yeah,
and that's another big piece, I guess. If you're making big decisions, we talked about people having the same goals and the same wanting the same outcomes. But another big piece of this is you got to know how you're going to evaluate, where you are.
Right.
If you're going to make effective adjustments.
If that was a good decision, right. Yeah. Right.
So there's really a lot more, before you decide, hey, here's our decision, you got to know, okay, what's our goal? What outcome are we looking for? And how are we going to know? How are we going to evaluate if we're getting closer to that goal?
Right.
And adjust.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to this point, there was that book, I think it came out in the business world, Great is the Enemy of Good. Is that what it was called? Or something like that?
Good is the enemy of great, I think it was.
Good.
Right?
No, it should be the other way around.
Is it? I thought, okay, I don't know. Let's see. Hang on.
I don't know. Well, anyway, so I just started doing some research around this idea of how do people evaluate decisions and what's the sort of the psychology of that. And I thought this was really interesting. That there is this one psychologist talked about this idea of satisficing. Like, is it satisfying or will it suffice?
Oh.
And where is that continuum? Like, is it good enough?
Yeah.
Or are you happy with it? And like, where does it lie in between that? And this person did this, they made this comparison. They said, on one end of that is this idea of a maximizer. I'm going to get the best possible outcome. And on the other end is I'm satisfied with the outcome.
Yeah.
And more people who identified as more satisfiers tended to be happier and more productive, whereas maximizers tended to be less satisfied with where they were and how things were going. And I thought that was really interesting. Like,
so
if you
was it a negative in that case to be less satisfied?
Yeah. I mean, they self-reported, or they identified as less satisfied, less happy with the way things are. So like all this fretting over being the best, being exactly right, doesn't really yield the satisfaction.
Okay.
Whereas finding a way to be satisfied, but recognizing it may not be perfect or ideal, you tend to be happier with the outcomes.
Okay.
And I just thought that was really interesting, because I think for a while, I always tried to maximize the outcome. And naively thought, or ignorantly thought, I guess, that would make me happy. But I think that's not the case.
So the other side of that coin might be, and it is good is the enemy of great. So, it's kind of like, so I was thinking, like, because the concept of that is, if you're satisfied with being good, you're never going to strive to grow to be great. And if we go back to our work in education, how many times do you see that? A really, really good teacher that never gets any better because they're really, really good and they're satisfied with being good. And then you run across, very rarely, you run across a Mary Kinzer, who's one of the best teachers around, but can never get enough coaching and things to try to get better. Always wants to be better,
Right, yeah.
So that's kind of when you're talking about being satisfied. I guess it just depends on the situation. I think it is important that once a lot of decisions in our life, once we make that decision, we probably ought, to try to be satisfied with that decision.
Yeah. Well, I think you get to a point where it's like, okay, I've informed myself enough, whatever that means, and I'm going to move forward. And like you said, this is where I go back to your point about you have to have a sense of humility to recognize that, okay, I'm moving forward, but that doesn't mean I'm done.
Yeah.
That this is the absolute, and I'm not going to change this. And I mean, there are certain decisions in life that, I guess you are right. Ultimately, you can undo pretty much any decision. I mean, not really. You can't not.
I mean, there's going to be some consequences, but
Yeah.
I think probably the furthest extreme is having children. Wouldn't you say? I mean, once you do that child's there.
Yeah.
So that's probably that's probably at that end.
Right.
But there's a lot of big life changing decisions that maybe we put too much careful consideration in some decisions. I was thinking when you were talking about that, I wonder how you and I would consider, how we would classify decisions that deserve really careful consideration. But okay, buying a car, that's a big decision to me, but I don't really know how much careful consideration needs to go into it. What types of things do you consider when you're looking into buying a car?
The sort of reliability and reputation of the car.
Yeah.
Does it have the things that I like in a car, which are not necessarily the things that other people want in a car, but does it have the things that I like in a car? Can I get a good deal? Can I feel like I'm getting, a decent product for the money I'm going to spend? And will it last a long time? I'm a person that keeps a car for a long time. I'm not get a new car every 3 years or 5 years person. So those are the kind of things that and some of those I can't know. Obviously those are unknowns. I mean, my last 2 cars I bought are electric, fully electric.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they last. The jury's still sort of out on those things.
Your first electric car, how old is it now?
10 years.
Because it's still in the family, right?
Yeah, I haven't had it for 10 years, but it's 10 years old.
Yep. Is it the same battery? Yeah. Original battery?
Same battery. Battery, same brakes. That's the one that amazes me.
Oh, really?
80,000 miles, yeah.
So, does it seem like the battery still, is it have you noticed the difference in the life?
It's decreased.
Yeah.
It's
substantially?
Probably 30% total.
Yeah.
Which, it was first generation electric vehicle, so it only had 120 mile range. Yeah. So it's down to 90-ish, 85, 90-ish range. Yeah. So, it's not, it's decreased, but it hasn't, it still does what it's supposed to do well. It's a really good commuter car.
Yeah.
Drive it around town, wherever I need to go. Plug it in every couple of days. And
I almost wish I had a list of decisions that needed to be made, because I'm wondering, in the way it's kind of laid out, the differences in us in making decisions, I'm wondering if the biggest difference is in the way we see where things fall on this continuation of needing little consideration or very careful consideration.
I think it's also, a big part of this for me is what role do I think I should play or want to play as it relates to other people. You know, I have friends, you talk about having kids.
Yeah.
I have friends that have children, and they pretty much act that under the principle that, yeah, when they get to be 18-ish, they're kind of on their own.
Yeah.
I don't really have any sense of I should do anything for them. I shouldn't have to provide for them in any way. I shouldn't help them.
They think they're still in the 1950s.
And I don't see it that way, you know?
Yeah.
And their kids are doing fine. You know, they've had some bumps and they've, you know, but they've also done, I mean, they're doing fine. But it's just a different philosophy about what my role is. And I hate to keep, you know, beating this proverbial dead horse, but I think so much of it comes from I've seen the consequence of bad financial decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And those are tough things to get around. You can get around them, but it takes a long time.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it makes, unless you've been in a situation where you do get to see those things, you know, if you do get to see people with real economic struggle, you might not understand that. Like, you know, if somebody in that type of situation, if they get up on a cold winter morning and their car doesn't start, they're not going to get to work.
Right.
You know, there's nobody they can call that has a car. Nobody that can get them to work, and you know, they might lose their job. Then if you lose your, you know, it's just like you don't have, you don't have these parents or family or like you're talking to get you out of certain situations. So decision making becomes super critical.
Right.
You know, there's a lot more decisions that in our current lives, in our current situations, might not really need careful consideration, that might need super careful consideration in this person's life. You know, right. I mean, it's just a whole different set of rules that we're living by versus what other people might live by.
Yeah. Or that we live by now that we didn't live by 40 years ago.
Yeah.
You know?
But even thinking with that, I mean, you know, I think back to when we were young. If I got into a real tough position, I always had some support. And, you know, a big part of it was, you know, if I needed some financial help at some point, I knew where I could get it. I mean, I would have to pay it back, but I knew where I could get some financial help. Or if, you know, we had something coming up and we needed somebody to watch the kids. I had somebody I knew, several people I could call, and they would watch the kids. Right. If we had something going on that, you know, we're in a hospital and we need dinner, I knew somebody was going to bring me. You know, it's just those little things that just make every decision so much larger for other people, and that's not in that position. Right.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's. I get very frustrated with friends of mine who say, well, people just need to do da-da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, well, that's easy for you to say.
Yeah.
You know, because you can do those things because if you know, because you have, you know, for all the reasons you just cited, you have the financial network that you can depend on. You have people with time, or you have people with the car, and I just think that we want to demonize and besmirch people who make probably the same not great decisions that we've made.
Yeah.
But they get the full on consequence of their decision. And we didn't.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a little bit of, back to your morality argument, it takes a little bit of humility here. You got to recognize that I'm really fortunate that this didn't play out this way for me.
Yeah.
So
I was laughing to myself because I think of some of mine and Cindy's early purchases in our marriage when we bought some items that we probably had no business buying at that time.
Yeah.
That's what I was laughing at. Some of those came to mind when I was thinking about that. But yeah, and you talk about it is easy to get frustrated, but you hear a lot of good people say the types of things you're saying. They're good people, but I think there's now I don't want to get up on a soapbox about it or anything, but there's a lot of people that just haven't seen real struggles that people live with.
Right. Right. Well, and go ahead.
I was just thinking that to me, that's one of the things I'm grateful for, and I think it's been very beneficial to me being in education is seeing people from all walks of life and seeing people that do have those real struggles and what they go through and how much different their life is from where we are, that a lot of people just don't understand. I'd say I don't think those people that you're talking about that you get frustrated with are assholes that just have no compassion or empathy.
Right.
No. Yeah.
Well, and so here's another thought, kind of related, but about something we've talked about before, that I find myself being that frustrated person because when I hear people say who really don't have the means to have all these things, they're like, well, why shouldn't I have $200 tennis shoes? People have $200 tennis shoes. Why should I not have them? I'm like, because you can't afford them. That's why. That is I drink nice, relatively expensive bourbon now, but I don't expect my 22-year-old to drink the same bourbon that I drink. He should learn to appreciate, and he does. He hunts out, good, inexpensive bourbon, for an example. And so that's where I find myself kind of on both sides of that argument. Like, there are luxuries in life that I've kind of earned. I feel like I've earned, sort of.
Yeah.
And I make the decision. I mean, it is a terrible decision, or it's not a good decision, to spend $75 for a bottle of bourbon. It's not a good decision. I mean, it's just not a good decision in terms of what that means on a global scale.
Yeah.
I could do a lot more good with that $75 than buy a bottle that you and I and Chris and 5 other people can share.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not a good decision. But yet it's one that I feel like I've kind of earned, sort of.
What about on the other side of that, though? So let's say you're working a minimum wage job. What is minimum wage now?
It's still $7-something an hour in Kentucky.
All right. Or maybe more than that. But let's say someone has very little realistic chance of saving up enough money for a down payment for a home, or saving up enough money to buy a new car, or any of these things, but they are working and they want to do some of those nice things for themselves, like you do with a $75 bourbon. And they have been able to save $200, and they're a new pair of Jordans that they'd like to have.
I don't know if Jordans is the thing anymore.
I don't
know. We'll go with that. Yeah.
Show them my age. What would it be today?
You name the NBA player, they got a shoe. So the Currys or the Wimbies or the whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what they choose to buy, even though maybe they don't. don't have a car, don't have their own house or apartment. Who knows?
Right. And this is where it's hard for me, because I agree with that idea. But if they have a child, there's $200. That $200 is going to do a lot more for that kid in terms of experiences and things that would enrich that child's life than those $200 shoes are going to enrich that adult's life.
Yeah.
I mean, I apologize if that makes me a judgy old man, but in this case, I'm a judgy old man,
Yeah.
Because I think I just feel like that's it. I mean, it's tough. So I found this thing. Speaking of which, this is related. In one of the articles I read, consumer choices today versus the pre-industrial age have increased by a factor of 100 million. So a consumer today has 100 million times more options and choices than they did in the pre-industrial age, which was only 160 years ago.
Yeah.
And you just think about what that means in terms of
think about how much more difficult that makes it to make decisions.
Exactly. Yeah, this was in an article about decision making.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
about what influences your decision. How do you make decisions? What are the factors? Because and again, back to our previous episodes, the algorithms, and the depiction of, if you had this thing, or you wore these clothes, or your kids wore these clothes, or your kid, whatever, then you would be happy. Then you would make this better choice in life, or you would have this better place in life. So you're making a decision.
Not only does it make decisions harder, but it's real easy to argue it doesn't make us any happier having all those choices either. And probably the opposite. Probably the opposite. I mean, there's a lot more, seems like there's a lot more anxiety and depression and things of that nature.
Well, this was in that same article that talked about the difference between maximizers and satisficers.
Yeah.
This idea that if you maximize to get the best decision or the best stuff, you're going to be, you self-report as being less happy than if you're just satisfied. And so if you have 100 million more times as many choices to get the best, you're good luck finding the one that's the best, So.
And we're comparing our choices to, those highly curated social media lives we're seeing.
Yeah.
What's that saying? Comparison is the thief of joy or something like that. Have you heard
that? No.
Something of that. I probably got it so screwed up.
That sounds right, though. That sounds about right. No, but I can see where that would be good. Yeah, it is. It really is, right?
Yeah.
If I do a thing, I like the thing, I really enjoy it until I find out that you're doing it differently or whatever. You do it more, I don't know what, I can't even think of an example.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly happy in my 2,000 square foot home. And then you tell me, well, we're building a 3,000 square foot home. I'm like, oh, wow, they got 3,000 square feet. What's that? It's got to be better than 2,000, but before that, I was perfectly happy in 2,000 square foot home.
A lot more vacuuming.
Some people like to vacuum, Brett. I'm not one of them. Some people.
All right, so you're ready to bring Chris in here?
Yeah, I am. See you around? Do we know?
Yeah, he sent me a text a while back, and I picked up my phone. And he said he's good to go. So we'll see how his.
Let's bring him in and see what he has to say.
I'm interested to see how his.
See what he says.
Family in the car listening to our live broadcast of this podcast, keeping track of tangents went.
Yeah, that should be
good. Yo, what's up, man?
What's up, guys?
Hey, bud, how you doing?
I am home. I'm doing great.
So how'd that go?
Great. Hey, it was. I definitely do not recommend riding with your wife while trying to take notes on a podcast. But I can't give you this. It was interesting riding with Tiffany for 30 minutes. I did do a tally on who made her laugh the most. And Scott, you made her laugh 5 times, and Brad only got 1. Honestly, man. I thought it would go the other way because she thinks Brad's funny. But way to go, Scott. Like, I'm talking like LOL, she laughed. I mean, hey, so maybe we got a new fan that'll start listening to the podcast. Good. I don't know.
She's retired. She got some friends at the network.
41, 41.
You were rolling tonight. And I did Google who said comparison is the thief of joy. And I got that was said by Brad West on August 6th, 2026. So I do like
it. I know that guy's really smart. I mean, you got to go with that guy.
I don't know. Like, I don't have, I actually don't have a way to Google that, but I thought, you know what, in this day and age, he should just take credit for that because that's pretty good. It definitely is. It definitely is. You got to like that.
Smart dude.
But this is a good one.
I actually heard that from a guy here in Carson not too long ago.
Was he the hardware store guy? Because I think that guy's brilliant.
They just sold a hardware store. So he retired. He retired at the age of 78.
That's not a good retirement year. But I some things that Scott said that I agree with. You know, like I also like to drink Scott's expensive bourbon. So I agree with him there. I'll come over anytime he wants to share it. It's a wonderful thing. And, you know, I was wondering, like, I thought it was so interesting when you started out, the first thing you guys did was decide, like, why do you make decisions? Is it to avoid the negative or to try to gain the positive? And Brad took the positive route, which I think, you know, the guy that ends his announcements with today will be a great day. You got to agree with that, although I'll take a lot of credit for giving him that little thing, sharing a little Jerry Maguire. But Scott being the negative, Scott, I got to tell you, man, I think you're one of the best devil's advocate.
Oh, no doubt. I know.
There is no doubt. Because somebody could say, I'm going to tell you, electric cars, terrible. And you would go, you say they're wonderful. They are wonderful. If you don't have an electric car, you'd be, you know, I don't know. I mean, mine's down 30%. My battery is already down 30%. I mean, it's a good commuter, but is that really practical? I mean, it's just, you're automatic. You are going to challenge the thought. And I love that. I mean, I'm saying that as a, but you know, I was wondering, Scott, the negativity you go with decisions, you think that has anything to do with the last 35, 40 years of being a Bengals and Reds fan?
Oh, wow. Wow. Man. Hey, the Reds won the World Series in my lifetime.
That's why I cut it to, 30
It comes from
years.
being a Steelers hater for too many years.
That's right. There you go. Hating on the Steelers.
So we were in Chicago, and we were waiting in line for this restaurant, and the woman in front of us was from Pittsburgh. It was kind of funny. So I was like, oh, really? Wow, nice.
Well, I got to say, just being in the same hallway with Scott for several years, he went from irrationally hating the Steelers to at least acknowledging their existence as a decent franchise. But then he'll always come back with something about Ben Roethlisberger and some of his actions. But I do see the growth there. I do appreciate that. Hey, the one thing I got to ask you though, Brad, is like, give me the 12, 15 second thought process on you and Cindy deciding to move to North freaking Dakota.
Well, all right. Well, so our son married a North Dakota girl.
Yeah.
Moved up here. We'd come visit. We then had a grandson, so we'd want to visit longer. And even before the grandson, we you come to North Dakota from Kentucky, you want to stay a little bit. You don't want to stay for 3 days. But we didn't want to be under their feet in the house. So we started looking around for our houses, and my daughter-in-law's best friend, or one of our good friends, said, we know this house here in Carson, North Dakota. So we went and looked at it. She told me the price, and I was like, hold on, yeah. Does it have running water and electric?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, yeah, it's in the neighborhood. And I was like, and that's the price? And I was like, yeah, we want it. And she said, well, don't you want to see it? I said, yeah, we'll see it eventually, but we want it. I mean, they practically, in these old railroad towns, they practically give these houses away because there's so many sitting empty. And
you first called that a hunting lodge, like it was going to be your hunting lodge.
That's what she told me it was. So I was picturing like this old homestead house out in the middle of the field somewhere with a hole in the floor to crap in. and a basin to wash your face in, and
Yeah.
But then, so we got the house in 2020. In 2024, we were in Kentucky for 3 months and North Dakota for 9 months. So we were like, hey, it might be time to move. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things where, we didn't jump into like, let's move to North Dakota. Just kind of over the years, we stayed a little longer until it was time to move.
Yeah.
That was longer than 15 seconds, wasn't it?
Yeah. But, I get it. I'm kind of right with that. If I was guessing the mindset of how that happened, I just probably would have said, well, here's my guess of what will happen is they'll end up moving up there, but they'll definitely come back to Kentucky for like November through February. And you guys were all in. That was probably the only shock.
Hey, you know what's crazy? I'm starting to like the extreme cold.
Well, you know why? Because I think that's how your brain works. You're like, no matter what my situation, I will learn to like it and I'll love it and I'll justify it and it's going to be wonderful. But I think that's what happens that's what you want to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I get it. And Tiff said, I don't care where our first grandchild is, we'll be there. So
yeah.
It kind of makes total sense in the end. I just thought it was an interesting process because that was a shocker when y'all were moving up there forever and ever. Well, at least for now.
Of course, you miss family and friends for sure, but we still get back home as much as we can, 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah, it's definitely.
So are we grading this? We have a grading mechanism. What are we thinking on the grade for this?
What do
I don't know how we grade this one.
Yeah, making decisions.
Hey, do you ever think? Here's one thought I had. I was wanting to know what you guys have. Maybe this will help you decide how you want to grade it. I remember my uncle. I said, "I tell you what, Chris, life is 5% what happens to you and 95% how you handle it." And you guys said something close to that, and it made me think. Like the big decisions in life, like the direction you're going to go with in life. I think you do have a decision in that. Like the choice you're going to make, what route you're going to pursue, and what you're constantly going to be trying to achieve. That's a decision you're consciously making. But the only way you make a decision is when the things happen to you. You got to decide the attitude you're going to take when that circumstance occurs. So you're not really making a decision for this to happen. It's a circumstance. So the smaller things that happen along the way, when you're on pursuit of your larger decision that you've made, your goal that you've decided, you don't have as much choice in those, but you've got to get to that when you make a decision in life, because you guys talk a lot about long-term goals and achieving this and that and the other. The small decisions is how's my attitude going to be in handling this circumstance? Because it can deter you from reaching that ultimate goal that you do have the ultimate decision to achieve. See what I'm saying? But a lot of things happen along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, you hardly ever just jump into life-altering decision. That doesn't come along very often. It's kind of like, you're kind of building this life small decision by small decision by small decision.
And doesn't that, I think it differentiates decisions between something you decide you're going to do and how you're going to handle something. Like it's like a choice decision, and then I got to choose my attitude.
Oh yeah.
For this day and this decision. That's another decision you make on the daily that influences what you're doing as far as.
Yeah.
I think about some of the biggest, if you just said some of the biggest decisions I've had to make, it was so much about the micro decisions of that decision. Kind of what you're getting at, Chris, the really small pieces of. I talked about it last pod about my brother and his when he got sick, and that was so much about. I don't think I know I didn't. On day one, I didn't decide I'm going to make this decision in 9 months. It was, this is the doctor we're going to go see to get a prognosis. I got informed about that decision, and we made that decision. That doctor gave us information. Diagnosis, treatment options, make a decision. Navigate that consequence of that decision. That puts you a month or 6 weeks further down the road. And each time, you were consistent with the arc of what you thought you were trying to do. But you were making smaller decisions that fit into this continuum of the big decision, which I think is what you're saying, Chris. I mean, I think that's very true. That it's, but see, so much of that I think is that confidence. Do you have to have a sense of confidence and comfort?
I would almost say
make a good decision. I can make a reasonable decision.
When you look back at things, I think the word is resilient. You got to have some resilience. Because you make a decision, you're going to go to college. Oh, okay, now all of a sudden you're going to have a second child. Okay, so are you going to change that decision you make based on something that's happened along the way? Or are you just going to say, you know what? No, I'm going to choose to overcome this. I'm going to choose on a daily. It's just different kinds of choices, from like a logical, I can write this down on paper choice from the direction that you take in life, to all the bumps along the way and how you're going to handle those. Are you going to take the look? It happened, but most of this is based on how I react to what happened.
That's definitely true. But I keep going back to what Scott talked about. I think we've got to, you got to understand that, or accept that we had a really good support system. Some people have really good support systems that helped carry them through
100%
decisions that might not have been perfect decisions.
Yeah. How do y'all want to grade decision making?
I don't know, man. I'm trying to think how. I mean, because I feel like I really. Do you guys think this is true or false? Everybody on every decision makes the best decision they can at that moment. Best decision they're capable of making at that moment.
False.
Yeah, I think false.
I think it goes a lot of time with the easiest.
So then you think people intentionally make bad decisions?
I think they make the easiest decision. I think they compromise, because I find myself doing that.
Why
life,
though?
even with the smallest things.
Why would you compromise though if you could make a better decision?
Because you immediately, I think to Chris's point, you immediately realize that better decision might be tougher to deal with.
But what if you maybe don't have what you might not have the strength to carry through with that tougher decision at that moment?
Well, let's put it in a perspective of a high school kid. You all are well aware of the woods outside of Fairdale High School, and you're sitting there like, I can go in the woods and have 4 new friends, or I can do what I know is the best, what I'm supposed to do, and just go to that math class. And how many times do kids, maybe they don't go to the woods, but they cut, or they end up at DQ? That's an example of the kid knows it. And as soon as they sit in my office, they're like, I know, I don't know why I did that. But it's just, that's an easy decision. It's easier just to go along with the crowd than say, guys, I got to go to math class. And that's teenage wasteland there. But an example of it's just easier if I just go along and shut up and don't say anything about this guy berating his girlfriend or wife or whatever in the line in front of me. And maybe the safest thing too. I mean, there's 100 examples. How many decisions do you make in a day? It's got to be hundreds, if not thousands.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got too many choices, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I want to say, I think decision making is probably getting tougher for those reasons we just talked about. A lot more choices. I want to say, I'm going to say C.
Yeah.
See, I guess I look at it differently. I think I want to say decision making as a process is really important. And so I'm going to say it's like, I give it over like a B+. I think it's really an important skill that we, and it's back to what we talked about before. You're ready, fire, aim.
So you're grading the importance of the decision-making process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How important is decision making? I think it is a thing. I mean, it's like any other skill, right? You got to get,
there's the word.
You're not going to bench whatever your goal is on the first week or month.
I think
you got to work on it.
skill. It's a skill. It honestly maybe is a skill that should be taught because there's more things out there, but there's also more ways to find out information when making a decision than ever before. That's at your fingertips. So it's almost like a skill that almost needs to be taught.
If it's a skill, then the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, right?
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Assuming, again, you can endure the consequences.
Yeah.
So then we could get into AI and these other things they're using. Does that make decision making?
That was on page 2 of my notes. We didn't get to it. The role of AI and all this. But
I have some things that tied in that we might be able to bring that back.
So I like the idea of the importance of decision making. I like grading that aspect of it. So my grade would go up a little bit.
If we just did importance, I'd go A.
Yeah.
Because then that opens it up to being willing to speak with people that might know more than you. Even the great Mary Kinzer that we spoke of earlier, I remember saying, Mary, I don't know, just keep doing this. After I did an evaluation for her, she goes, I don't know, Johnstone, I want to get better. Let's talk about it. And I'm like, I just paused. That changed my whole trajectory on observations because this was 10 years ago. And I'm like, all right, if this lady says that, then it's no holds bar on everybody because she could say, you're right, I'm just going to maintain this, but she didn't. So, she was looking for to grow, and I just respect the heck out of that. She even sent me a text today wishing me a happy first day of school.
Nice, yeah.
So you ready to hear? I came up with 4.
Okay. That's been a lucky number.
Well, I had 5, and I'm never going to do 5, and I really don't like to do 4, but hey, I give you 4 choices, and you guys kind of decide from there, so it really doesn't matter to me. I have my favorite, but we'll go from there. All right, number 1, I think this would be good. For one, it's called Schools of the Future. We got into education a lot tonight, and we have 100 years of education between the 3 of us, and this would cause you guys to get into, the mud a little bit, and education the last 30 years, and we kind of think we know where we want it to go, but I would love to hear you guys after a week of looking it up and thinking about it and reading some stuff and listening to some things, where you thought education was going to go in the future. You guys are very qualified to do that. So there's 1. 2, Scott, you talked about analysis paralysis, and we had a lot of other stuff come up about when you guys were just talking self-reflection. I think humans are naturally poor self-reflectors, and it's important to have that constructive criticism in life. Maybe somebody you trust that will actually say that. A friend that'll tell you have a booger in your nose, if you know what I mean, instead of just let you go with it. And that's tough. But
really? The whole pod didn't tell me?
Maybe that's why Tiff was laughing. I don't know. I didn't look close. But so that one is just basically self-reflection and constructive criticism. No matter what, because every time I look in the mirror, the guy I look in the mirror, it's every day. He's older than I was thinking. You know what I mean? And just the ability to self-reflect on what kind of person we are, man, that's a tough skill to have. And is it important to have people in your life that help you with that? Number 3, you guys talked a lot about, we talked about Mary Kinzer and some things that we did at the school and are still doing there, but just leadership. I would love to hear you guys talk about what leadership worked on you and what leadership has worked for you as a leader. And, the one thing we fail to realize is we're not young whippersnappers anymore, but we still hopefully have a few decades left on this earth. And I think it's good for guys like you all to share some wisdom as to what you've learned about what worked for you when you were being led and what worked for you when you were leading. So there's number 3. And the last one I came up with, that I like this one too a lot. You guys got to talking about bourbon and just things that we have. And we have some nice things, and you have choices to make that the ordinary person doesn't have to make. And it's just like with my youngest, Cooper, just getting married. They bought a house. The interest rate's a little high. And what they paid for this house is, more than it was a few years back, of course, but it's a nice house. But they're going to be able to have the American dream in my eyes. But there's the question. Here's the podcast. The American dream. Does it still exist? At least, does it still exist like it was defined when we were growing up? And if it still exists, has it changed? Like, what is it now compared to what we would have defined it? So let me go through the 4.
What was your favorite? You said you had a favorite.
Oh, man,
you had one. What was it?
I really love the American dream because I think you can go anywhere with that. But honestly, it's just won by 1 point at the buzzer. I would love to see. I would love to hear. Personally, I think it would be cool to make you guys do a little research to see what education in the future is going to look like, and also to do some deep reflection on your leadership, what worked for you, and what worked with you. But which is the best podcast? If I'm saying, like, if I'm just a casual listener, probably just the old American dream. And has it changed, and what is it now?
So
they're all good.
What's Tiffany's favorite?
Yeah. See, that would have been laugh number 7 right there. That's it. Don't take it too bad, Brad. Maybe she'll listen next week and actually be somebody that'll comment on the podcast. That'd be good. They're all good. I think they're all pretty good topics. If I had to rank one fourth, I'd probably do self-reflection fourth.
Man. I like the American dream. I like the American dream.
Yeah, me too.
Do you?
That's my far and away favorite.
Yeah.
They can go anywhere, and I think it's going to be interesting not just only talk what it was and if it's still achievable, but what's it turning into. It's a good conversation. It would be a great sit around the fire, bourbon talk with the buddies for sure, and the ladies.
Yeah, man. There's so many perspectives you could come at that with.
Yeah, and how many high schoolers would even, if you said the American dream to them, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll get a survey, kind of just go around and ask 25 students, what's the American dream, and see what they say. Yeah. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah. All right, man. So thanks everybody for listening. Whatever platform you listen on, please give us a review and maybe even slap a comment on there and share us with your friends. And we'll see you guys next week for the American Dream.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for listening.
See you guys.